Welcome. Have you ever felt or perhaps observed that you experience similar patterns in your life that make you feel miserable constantly? We can also ask or answer this question by asking a follow-up. What kind of story do you tell people about yourself, and especially when you're in pain? Your pain has a story, and this is what we call a narrative. And today we will talk about this narrative, which we will refer to as the mental scar. And we will learn how to eradicate the self-image that comes from that mental scar. First, we have to define what exactly a mental scar is. And for this, I will use what we call a body-mind diagram, which I have explained in detail on the video about self-abandonment. I encourage you to take a look at it. But I will describe briefly what this is, yet I will not go into all of its details as it is a vast topic of its own. This is a representation of your mind, and this is a representation of your body. But for what we care about today is to talk about the mental scar that exists in your mind. The mental scar can be defined as the negative use of your higher faculty of memory. In combination of strong emotions, these two things go very well together, as the faculty of memory uses the attachment of emotions to better memorize things. This is a trick used in language learning, among other types of techniques in terms of memorization. And this is rooted from a strong experience. And all of this we could also call trauma. All of this negative use of your higher faculty of memory plus the strong emotions coming from that experience will usually keep on repeating itself on your mind, as your memory will take it and store it on its database. The constant repetition of this memory or the narrative of this mental scar will create what we call a negative oriented paradigm. A paradigm is like the software that is running your body, and this works in patterns. So you will see that more often when you experience something in life that is negative or perhaps traumatic and somehow related to this, you will always make a direct correlation. We could say it's how once you got betrayed in a romantic relationship, and you will live with a deep fear of being betrayed. Even when this has not happened, the paradigm will repeat itself or will be present just as soon as you are inside of a romantic relationship, because this puts your body in an alarmed state that tells you you are finding yourself in the same condition of receiving love, of being with someone else, and the last time this happened, you were deeply hurt. So stay alert, because you may get hurt again. That is the mental scar. Because this paradigm goes in repetition or creates a pattern that will make your body vibrate, and this is simply how your body acts in terms of physical action into a manifestation of your paradigm, your patterns. They manifest into the real world in the form of negative results. With this, we must introduce another concept, which is called the self-image. And to explain this best, you may find it through the most honest answer you can give to this question. And this is, how do you see yourself? This is you. Do you see yourself as a source of inspiration? As someone that is happy? That is not broken? As someone whole? Or do you see yourself as someone that is broken, that is unhappy, that is unhealthy, and therefore someone that is incomplete? The most important key element of this is to use the self-image on your narrative from your mental scar, and you ask yourself, how do I perceive myself out of this particular experience? Think about that event that is causing you this much pain. Think about it. Think about the narrative that you tell people over and over and over and over again. If I were to ask you, I am almost certain that without much thought, automatically, you will tell me a negative story. And how do you perceive yourself? Can be answered, for example, as a victim. Maybe weak. Or vulnerable. And all of these is rooted from a egocentristic mindset or characteristic. This is to say that somehow you also did not hold any fault. Yet we are not here to judge any of that. So what we're interested in is in identifying this form of negative language, because this will have all sorts of impacts in your life. The more you repeat these things, the more they will start manifesting into all sorts of negative results, which you will encompass in 3 different categories: health, happiness, and wealth. You will rapidly notice that these mental scars will make you unhealthy, unhappy, and more often unwealthy too, out of living on autopilot from a negative oriented paradigm. That is the negative side of this. And I would like to share a personal story on how, by identifying my own negative oriented paradigm, I healed myself from what I thought would be a chronic pain in my body I could not bear, and that had been present with me for more than a year. And right after the realization of this negative oriented paradigm, I healed almost immediately. And it seemed like a miracle. I could not really believe it until I learned all of this thanks from the knowledge of Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He is the author of the brilliant book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which I deeply encourage you to read and reread and reread once more. Over that book, he discusses on the self-image and, in a sense, how we run in paradigms. Yet he introduces as well the concept of cybernetics, and this is how you maintain yourself on a specific direction. And whenever you start achieving more success or falling below your own bar, you will always bounce back into the same area. And that may as well be always being stuck in the negative side of things, depending on your paradigm. If it's negative oriented or positive oriented. If it's positive oriented, then you will keep maintaining yourself in a positive oriented trajectory towards the achievement of positive results. But for my case, I used to have for a very long time a pain in my knee, which I derived being from my work, as I usually work on the outdoors and I carry heavy equipment, and it can be strenuous for the body. I could not understand the reason of this, as I felt I was not doing anything wrong. I was very happy initially in my job. With time, as I started to grow bored of it, that's when pain started to leak in. And at some point, it just started to become unbearable. And for over 1 year, I carried this pain. I did all sorts of measures. I decided to start removing weights from my shoulders, go as light as I could, and do as little activity as it would be possible. But I realized that the pain will not go away. I started to use a walking stick. And for my young age, I felt extremely frustrated because I could not accept living like that so early. Eventually, this pain started to increase. And even when I was on rest, just laying on bed, pain on my knee or on both of my knees will start to occur. And I will find myself complaining a lot. To people. I will say, oh, why me? Why am I so wretched? What have I done to deserve this? Only if things were better. I eventually started to grow a big disliking to my job, for which I realized I just could not keep on performing. Yet I was bound to it due to we could say, diplomatic personal situations on working visa, among other things, I felt like I had to say, if I was to achieve personal stability living in the place I was living. And so I realized where my mental scar was. That I was choosing to abandon myself constantly by performing a job that was not fulfilling me or making me happy, that I was not striving for the true goal and purpose in life. Every day I was waking up and saying, I am looking forward for this day to be over. And I only hoped one day everything will change. It was not until I realized that I was running in a negative paradigm. I was getting negative results because from my mental scar, I kept seeing myself. I perceived myself mostly as a victim of his circumstances. And I did not assume my own responsibility that I was choosing to abandon myself. When I realized this, I had a great confrontation within myself. And I acknowledged change had to be put immediately on track. And this was a difficult decision, but I decided to quit my job and to start to pursue what I truly felt like I was good at. Something I could do with a great joy, and for sharing with others how I found great change through learning different things such as this. And almost immediately after I took the great decision to quit my job, which I knew would cost me my stability and living in that place, my pain disappeared because I have taken again control on my steering wheel, and I had chosen not to abandon myself ever again. Lastly, I would like to share an exercise that you may try in order to find your own mental scar. And this is to set yourself in a dark room in silence, at least 30 minutes. Focus on the most concurrent or recurrent pain that you face in life, whether it be in romantic relationships or perhaps failure in business, or feeling like you struggle in social interactions. Think, what is the narrative that you have from your mental scar? And then apply the concept of the self-image to identify how do you perceive yourself from that narrative of the mental scar. And when you see what you are, you will understand that your body behaves like this. In my case, I would behave like a victim, like I was weak, like I was vulnerable, like I had to always be in pain in order to show the world I was weak and that I needed so much care from others because I lacked my own responsibility. You do become what you think about. I thought about being a victim. I thought about being weak. I thought about being vulnerable. And through a paradigm that's negative of repetition of these thoughts, my body started to become ill. And I was unhappy. And I was spending much money on these things with great negative results. I hope that this information has cleared up minds that were troubled with much pain. And I hope you may put this in practice and it may change your life such as it changed mine. Thank you for watching.